So the first question says, my husband shuts down completely whenever we have a disagreement. He doesn't shout or argue, he just goes silent, sometimes for hours or even days. Why would someone react like that, and what's the best way to respond without making things worse? Okay. So why people do this is because they don't feel emotionally safe. And, there's, depending on what happened in his childhood, the way he responds to your emotions or to conflicts or a disagreement is how it was role modeled to him. And I think this is the hardest thing for partners and spouses to understand, is why we get into those conflict situations is because we are so different. So to give an example, like maybe you grew up in a household where it was role model to you how your parents had conflicts and they actually resolved it. They spoke about it. They did it in front of your children, or your children were aware of it. And so for you, that was completely normal. In his household, where he was raised or wherever he grew up, two things could have happened. It could have been that conflict was really, really bad and really, really scary. Maybe one of the parents left, or there could have been some aggression. We don't know. I mean, it's good to find out maybe. And so that was scary for him. And it was like, whoa, this is not a good situation. I feel unsafe here, and therefore I'm going to retreat and I'm going to go and hide. And this is why people usually shut down, because they feel so uncomfortable with emotions. They feel so uncomfortable with disagreements and with conflicts. It made them feel unsafe. And so they're still responding the same way that they would have as children. And the thing is with our nervous systems and with our emotional system is that we still respond in that age of when that event happened. So go and, if you'd like, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I've got a free emotional intelligence course. It's the full one, it's not a taster one, and it explains the brain, and it explains how our bodies create emotions, how our brain creates emotions and perceptions. And so basically we've got the amygdala, which is the emotional brain, if you'd like to call it that. The emotional brain sits here in the middle, and it keeps all the memories, the images, the emotions, everything is here, and it keeps it stored. And it's this part of the brain that keeps you safe. So if, for instance, your husband maybe as a 7-year-old felt unsafe because there was a disagreement happening at home, now when you have a conflict, he's reacting as a 7-year-old, because that part of him, that 7-year-old, that was never resolved. That was never ever put to rest. It was never said, well, what you felt was uncomfortable, and I'm sorry that happened to you, whatever. It wasn't validated. He sat with that fear of that conflict on his own as a 7-year-old, and he wasn't able to process it or to release that emotion. So now every time something happens that is similar, he reacts in the same way. And for him, the safest way is to just shut down and take himself off. And he doesn't know how to deal with it, because he's never been taught how to deal with it. It's never been role modeled to him of, this is what feelings are. Our emotions are completely normal. Feelings are normal. We're all born with them, and you don't have to fear them. You just need to understand them. You just need to understand what they're trying to tell you. And so in order for him to not do that anymore, he needs to become comfortable with his emotions. And unfortunately, you can't make another person do something. It's just impossible. It's so hard. The only thing you can do is you can say, you know what, I've noticed, and wait until this is over, until you're both feeling emotionally safer and calmer, and then bring it up, and then just say, can we talk? Um, you know, Even sometimes saying, can we talk, can trigger somebody. But you can say, I really would like to talk about what happened the other day. And I've noticed a pattern where wherever we have a conflict, you kind of shut down or you freeze, because we've got three responses. We've got fright, fight, flight, or freeze. And then the shut down. So, and you can say, and I've noticed that you kind of just shut down. You freeze and you shut down. And Do you think it's maybe something that happened, or did you witness something as a child that made you scared of your emotions, or scared of other people's emotions, or scared of conflict? And I think men are generally programmed in a way to keep the peace. They would rather keep their wife happy and have everything peaceful at home than to rock the boat. And so often they think that, well, I can just be absent and then I can just, sweep everything under the carpet and it will go away. So have that conversation with him and help him to understand his own emotions if you understand them. So, but this is a classic scenario of why people shut down, why they disappear, why they freeze, and then they're kind of like hoping it will go away. But if you let it just go away, then that becomes a pattern in your relationship as well. So, and I know sometimes it's hard because you've now got to be the one that has to talk about it, but it's you that it's bugging, right? So it might not be bugging him, or it is bugging him, but he's not bringing it up. So because it's bugging you, you're going to have to be the one that initiates a conversation and said, let's talk about it, because I can see that maybe you're scared of your emotions, or maybe you're scared of conflict. And you can also ask him, what is it about conflict that scares you? You know, are you worried that I'm going to leave? Are you worried that you're going to lose me? Are you worried that I'm going to stop loving you? Just talk it out, because the more comfortable you get with emotions and the more comfortable you get with having these difficult conversations, but doing them in like a really calm manner, the more you're going to understand each other and the more you're going to be able to connect, and it's really going to bring you a lot closer. Okay, the second one is, it says, my wife gets upset over what seems like very small things. If I forget to text her, change plans at the last minute, or don't notice she's had a difficult day, she seems far more hurt than I expect. I know it's real for her, but I don't understand why it feels so big. Okay. So sometimes all these little things are a build up of a lot of things that have happened over the years. And those years that it built up could be even before she met you. And I think this is an important thing that I'm going to say now for everybody to know, is that when it comes to emotions and the way somebody responds or acts based on emotions, it's never, ever about you. It's never about you, and it's never personal. But the thing about emotions are that they're tied very much to needs, values, and beliefs. So they're very interconnected. So when we have a belief, we then have a need. So say, for instance, you have a belief that you've been raised with, that you need to respect each other, or you need to respect your elders, or you need to whatever. So you've got this belief about respect being important, which is a great belief, right? You then have a need for respect, and you also have a value of respect. So our values are really at the basis of everything. So values are almost like I explained in my course. It's like the core of an apple. Everything works around it. And if you're not living in line with your values, then you do have a lot of reactions that go on. So, as you say, to you, they seem like really small things, but they could be like really big things to her. So, I'm going to break it down, because you said a few things here. You said, if I forget to text her, so she might have a value of being kept in the loop, or being important, or treating people importantly or significantly, or like, say, for instance, so if she's got that value, then she's going to do that herself, right? Or if she has a need for being texted. So my guess is that she probably texts you regularly because that's important to her. A value is, that's what's important to me. I need to stay in the loop. I need to know that you okay. I need to know that I'm thinking about you. I need you to know that you're important to me. And therefore, so if she's doing that, she wants that in return, because she wants to know possibly that you're thinking about her, or she's important to you, so you've remembered to do the thing that she asked you to do. So maybe she said to you, please can you text me when you're leaving home, because maybe she wants to know that you're safe. So when you're driving, so that if something happens in between, or she knows when to expect you home, so that's important to her. So it seems like a little thing, but there's all these hidden layers underneath of these bigger things that are at play. And so when you don't text her, what goes on in her head is like, I'm not important to him. He didn't do what he said he's going to do. I don't matter to him. Now I'm worried. He doesn't care that I'm worried about him. I'm worried about his safety, and oh my gosh, I love him so much, and I don't want something to happen to him. But now he hasn't told me that he's left. So you see what I mean? There's loads and loads of things underneath that. So it seems small to you, but it's huge to her. And maybe one day you can ask her. You can say to her, why is it important to you that I text you? And she'll tell you why. Most women will always tell you if you ask them. And that will help you to understand that what you think is small is actually big to her. Then change plans at the last minute. Something else, again, maybe you've got these plans. First of all, she's excited about it. She's prepared for it. Now, what women generally tend to do is that when you've got plans, we've got a to-do list of 100 different things that we've got to do to make sure that everything is running smoothly. Because women are the organizers, they are the ones that keep check with the relationships, the household, everything that's going on at home. And I'm not saying that there aren't men like this, but 9 times out of 10, this is a woman's role, because that's how we've been raised and it's been role model to us, and we've been wired that way. If you think back to the cavemen used to go out and hunt for the food, and the woman would collect the berries. We used to do everything around here, and we organize this, and so there's a lot of things on our to-do list. So when you have plans, she's probably got a to-do list of everything that she had to do, and now suddenly that to-do list has changed. So it's like, oh my gosh, I've planned all of this in my head, figured it all out, even what I'm going to wear, going to have my hair done, my nails done, and now you've gone and changed plans. So instead of we going to a fancy restaurant, we're going for a boat ride or something like that. I mean, now I'm just making up silly examples, but I don't know exactly what the plans are. But what I'm trying to explain to you is there's always this big production that happens in the background. But it also could be that maybe your wife feels anxious, or she feels a little bit unsafe. And so if she was going somewhere, she had time to mentally prepare herself. And now you've changed the plans and she hasn't had that time to mentally prepare herself for that. So once again, just ask her, instead of being annoyed about it, ask her, sit down, take her out to dinner the one night, or have a quiet night, and all these little things that you think are little, say to her, you know what, I really would love to understand you. I really want to know what's going on in your head. And I can tell you something now, your wife will fall in love with you all over again by you just doing that, because you showing an interest in her and why these things happen is going to make you feel so much more connected, because there's going to be a deeper understanding. But ask her and she'll tell you. She will tell you exactly why she doesn't like it. And then the third one is, or don't notice she's had a difficult day. I think we all want to feel important, and we all want to be noticed without us asking, especially women. The biggest complaints I get from women is that women always have to ask for help, or they've got to ask to be noticed, or ask to be seen, or um, ask to help load the dishwasher, or ask to help bath the kids, or cook dinner, or whatever. Because, men, the way men's brains are wired are very different, in terms of they're very one track minded, they're single focused, where women are um, focus on a lot more. They're very more diverse with their thoughts and their focus. And men tend to be this, they have this kind of focus. And so she just wants you to notice without her having to tell you. And I don't think it's like really too much to ask. I know it's a hard thing, because you may be focusing on your own issues, and you're focusing on your own bad day, or what had happened. But when you just pay a little bit of attention, and I think a lot of men don't do this because they feel like they have to fix it. And you don't have to fix it. You just have to notice. Because just validating that in itself, because there's a lot of complaints as well that women say, I just want to talk, but my husband thinks he's got to fix everything. We don't. We don't want you to fix it. We'll tell you if we want you to fix it. So it's just a case of going, oh, hi, love. It looks like you've had a bad day. Are you okay? It's just that tiny little bit of awareness and seeing it and validating that is going to make her feel okay and feel calm. And then you can say to her, is there something I can do to help? And then she'll go, no, it's okay, but thank you for noticing. And then it's over. But then what a lot of people do is they rather avoid it. They don't notice it. And then all of this information and all of these perceptions and this whole conversation goes on in a woman's head again, where she goes, he doesn't even notice if I have a bad day. I don't matter to him. I'm not important to him. So we constantly have these conversations, and men do it the same, but I'm just explaining it from a woman's perspective. So I hope that helps you to understand. But talk to your wife, take her out, cook her a meal, have a lovely quiet evening or afternoon or day together, and then just say to her, I really want to understand you. Can you explain to me why this upsets you? And then you'll know in future. And I think you'll pay more attention to it then, and you'll just be more aware of it. Because if what matters to her matters to you, it's going to make your relationship so much stronger. Okay. Third question. Whenever I try to tell my husband how I'm feeling, he seems to get defensive or acts as though I'm criticizing him. I just want him to understand me, but somehow it always turns into an argument. Why does this happen? Okay. So some people hear emotional expression as blame. They think that it's a criticism, um, and because they think it's a criticism, they then have to protect themselves and they've got to defend themselves. And this happens a lot with people who were not allowed to express their emotions, or even feel their emotions as children. And you know what? I really sometimes feel so bad for men, because I think men had it so much harder than us, because it was kind of a women were allowed to express their emotions more freely. Um, Although having said that, not really in my experience, but a lot of times it seems more acceptable for women or for girls to cry than for boys. And so boys grew up with this whole thing about, cowboys don't cry, pull yourself together, man up. So that little boy is like, oh, okay, this is a criticism. I'm crying and I'm feeling really hurt and I'm feeling really sad, but I'm not allowed to feel this way, so I've got to man up. They see it as a criticism, that there's something wrong with them. And so they learn to become really emotionally unavailable, and they learn to defend themselves because now they feel like they've done something wrong. And especially if the parent reacts really badly to their emotions or blames them. So some parents would go, now look at what you've done. You've made me so angry now. Or look at what you've done. Now I this. Or so, or what did you do? And remember that finger. Oh my goodness. A lot of parents used to use the finger, and which is even an exaggerated expression of aggressive, like when you look at body language. And so children are then become very fearful of their emotions, and then they blame themselves because they were blamed, they blame themselves for causing other people's emotions. So if you were told as a child, you made me angry, so now your husband comes along, you expressing your feelings, and he's like, oh my gosh, so I'm to blame, this is my fault. And so he goes into defense mode. And because he's never learned that your emotions and his emotions are different and they're separate, And he's not to blame for your emotions. You are responsible for your own emotions and you own them. And it's your perception of what happened to you and why you feel that way. He needs to defend because he thinks he's the cause of it. So that's the explanation. So how do you deal with it? So when you calm and you in a nice balanced situation, the energy is not um, feeling strife or nice little calm situation. You can talk about feelings and you can say to your husband, when I express my feelings, I'm just telling you how I feel. I don't need you to fix it. I don't need you to, I'm not blaming you. I'm just expressing my feelings. But then you've also got to learn how to express your feelings yourself properly. And you've got to say, I feel frustrated when, I feel sad when, I feel angry when. So, not you make me frustrated, you make me sad, you make me angry, or when you do this, when you always do this, this makes me angry. When you always do that, that makes me frustrated. Because now you're criticizing, right? Because you are blaming him. And so he's going to become defensive because he is going to see it as a criticism. Whereas if you're saying, I really feel frustrated when I have to ask you 10 times to take out the bin, because then I think you're not supporting me and you're not helping me. And I don't, I just would like you to help me a little bit because I'm tired and I need your help. You see how different that is to saying, I feel so blinking frustrated because you never take out the bin and you never help me. I want you to help me. I'm also tired and I also go to work. There's a huge difference there. When you're explaining to somebody how it makes you feel, there's no criticism. You're saying, I feel frustrated when I've got to ask you because I feel exhausted when I've got to ask you 10 times. And I really would just love you to help me because I'm tired. I'm also tired of, I've worked 8 hours and I would love you to help me. And I would just love it if you just do this one thing for me. But instead, I've got to ask you 10 times and then I've got to do it myself. And then I feel ignored and unimportant and like you're not interested in helping me. So when you say it like that, try and condense it a bit. I gave you a little bit too many words there. He hears then why you're feeling frustrated and that he's not to blame for your frustration. So always start your sentences off with I feel and explain that to him. Now, this takes a little bit of learning and a little bit of getting used to because initially he probably won't even hear you saying, I feel. He's just going to see your emotion. He's going to see your frustration and he's going to jump to the conclusion that you're not criticizing him and that he's got to defend himself. So you've got to find a different way to do it. Now, I gave you some examples of just assuming that there was a little bit of strong assertiveness and maybe some real frustration. But if you've always responded that way, to give you an example, if you've always been, and I know I was like this, so I'm not putting it on you, and I know a lot of people struggle with this, but I know I was exactly like this. I would get to a point where I was so frustrated that I would then shout. I would shout and I would rant and rave, and I used to feel like I was pulling my hair out. But then that becomes your norm, and then it's just ignored. It's like it goes over their heads, whether it's your child, whether it's your partner. It's just like, oh, well, it's just a lot of noise. It's just noise. It's just noise. The thing with men as well, which I'm going to say here, and if you've got a son, please remember this as well. You've got to get their attention because they are singular focused, whereas we can focus on a lot of things. It's just the way we're wired. We're wired differently. The brains are wired differently. And so when you've got his attention, first make sure you've got his attention. Speak to him in a nice, calm manner. If you've always raised your voice, you can just say, I'd really love to explain something to you. And you do it in a calm, calm, calm manner. And you say, the reason I feel frustrated when I've asked you to take the bin out and I've asked you 10 times and then I feel more frustrated is, and then fill in the blank. Because when you respond in a different way, that is going to help him to respond differently. Because if you don't, you are just triggering him and triggering his nervous system, and therefore his defenses go up and he's got to protect himself. So you've got to come in with a different way. You know what I find works with my husband, and it took years to figure this out, because my husband's got that response where he always goes into defense mode, and he will acknowledge it. He'll say he's always defensive. If I want to talk to him about something, and I'll send him a voice note, like the next day or the day after, and I'll say to him very calmly in a voice note and say, you know what happened? I'd really like to talk about that. He loves it. He absolutely loves it, because what it does is it gives him a chance to listen to me in a calm voice. It gives him time to process what I've said, because some people take longer to process than other people, and then he can respond accordingly. Was this frustrating in the beginning? Heck yes, because my brain works so fast, and I'm like, I want to resolve this now, because I'm that kind of person. I'm like, if I've had a conflict now, I want to resolve it. I want to get it out the way, and I want to get on with my life. But I've had to learn and accept that that's not the way my husband works. So I've got to allow him to process it and then to respond in his own time. Sometimes it's taken years, but it's got better now as we've got older. But what I'm saying is, find the way that works for you so that you don't trigger his nervous system. But for you, you've got to remember that your feelings are yours. You've got to own it. You've got to express it. And just remember, don't ever blame somebody else for the way you're feeling, because they can't physically get in your body and create the perception around what you're feeling in that moment. Okay. Go check out my free emotional intelligence course on my website. I'll put the link down below, where you can learn all about how emotions are created, how the brain responds, the personalities, and all of that. It's really interesting, and it will help you to understand yourself and to understand him as well. Okay, last one for today is, my husband always tries to solve my problems instead of listening. Sometimes I just want him to hear me, but he immediately starts giving advice. Why do so many people do this, and how can we understand each other better? Okay, so this also comes back to wiring, the way the brain is wired. So women just want to talk, and often when they talk, they solve their own problem, but they just need to express themselves, right? Men are the fixers. That's just the way their brains are wired. So the minute you start talking about a problem, they're like, okay, it's my job. My job is to fix this. I've got to fix this now. And they go into Mr. Fix-It mode. It's just the way they're wired. And so, and I'm not saying all men are like that, but most men are. So if this is the way your husband is, what I would do is say to him, babe, sometimes I just want to express myself. I just want to talk, because it helps me to actually sort out my own problem. It helps me to feel better. It helps me to hear myself out loud. And then most of the time, I'll solve my own problem. So in future, what I'm going to do, if you don't mind, like, get his consent, because it's nice that he agrees to it, because then he'll know. Because the minute you agree to something and commit to it, then it kind of like puts like a little tag in your head, because if they don't agree to it, then they're going to forget, right? So you can say, in future, if I say to you, do you mind if I talk and you just listen and be a sounding board for me? And if I need you to fix it, or if I need your help and advice, I'll ask for it. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, yeah, sure. Because they're being helpful, and men like to be helpful. They want to help you, and they want you to feel better. And so, but also say things like, um, do you just have 5 minutes? I'd love to just have a sounding board. I just need to express this. I just need to get this out, because I'm really struggling with something and I can't come up with an answer. And I think if I just express it to you as a sounding board, maybe I'll find the solution. But always just tell them that, or tell him that you're not looking for him to fix it or to give advice. And if you do want advice, then you'll ask for it. But I think it's important for you just to know that that's just the way most men are wired. You do get some women like that as well. But yeah, that's just that male brain. They just want to fix it for you. Sometimes they, in the beginning, they can get a little bit frustrated or annoyed because their brain wants to almost like come up with a solution, or to offer advice. And you can see they kind of get like a little bit uncomfortable and antsy, but then they get used to it. And I think sometimes what's nice though is some husbands will go, um, I have a suggestion for you if you'd like to hear. He might even come up with something like that. Or you can say at the end of it, do you maybe have any suggestions, or can you see what's happening here? Because I don't see what's happening. But explain to him that it's about asking if you want advice or if you want a solution, and not just palming it off on you. Great. Well, that's all I have time for today. So thank you so much for writing in. It was wonderful to answer all your questions. If you have a burning question, whether it's about your child, relationships, life in general, emotions, behavior, anything that you're struggling with, and you just need a sounding board, or you need to ask for a little tip or advice, please write in. I'm always here for you. You don't have to struggle and strive alone with this concern or this worry that you might have, or something that's on your mind. And all you need to do is to submit your question below. And as you can hear, I didn't give anybody's names out in the questions from the adults. All of them wanted to be anonymous, and that's completely fine. But just make sure that you enter your email address so that I can ping you an email to let you know of when your question is answered on the channel. Take care, and sending you much love wherever you are in the world. Bye for now.